5 on the special town meeting. So we wanted just to thank everybody for attending here tonight. My name is Tom Mahan. I'm the chair of the Permanent Town Building Committee, and I'll be the moderator for we're here tonight for the public meeting. I want to go to the next slide, please, Mike. Oh, I'm sorry. And before we get going, I wanted to let everybody know that this is a public meeting, that this meeting will be recorded. So all conversations and all questions that are submitted in the chat will become part of the public record. So our agenda for tonight's meeting is I'm going to do a brief introduction of the project team. We'll talk a little bit about the history of the project and project timeline. Also going to focus on some of the key components of this building. And then I'm going to turn it over to Chris Logan from Context Architecture. He'll walk us through all of the developed plans and perspective views of both the exterior and the interior of the building. We'll also talk about some of the energy and sustainability goals and features of the project. Then I'll take back and discuss the estimated project budget along with our annual operating costs. And then also with us tonight is Dan O'Donnell, the finance director, and Christine Collins, town treasurer. They have a separate presentation where they're going to talk about the impact of this project on taxes and on our excluded debt. And then lastly, we'll open it up to questions and answers. But feel free to raise your hand if you have questions during the presentation. If we see, at any point during it, if you want to submit a question or raise your hand, and if we recognize it, we'll be, we're happy to address it at the appropriate time. Next slide. So I'd like to just briefly just make some acknowledgments here. Well, I want to start with the Permanent Town Building Committee. I know many people probably recognize me as being, probably the voice and the face of a lot of these projects at town meetings, but just wanted to take a moment just to recognize the rest of the committee. We have a group of very dedicated individuals, and most of them I think are out there tonight in the virtual world. And I just wanted to acknowledge Nancy Cook, Jim Zegwitz, Scott Hazelton, Gene Roberts, and Chris Karpinski for all of their dedication and hard work for the committee. Context Architecture, as I mentioned before, Chris Logan, the principal architect, they're our partner on this project. I also want to thank Jody Ross, Eric Heidemann, and their staff, the town manager's office, for the support, and of course, all the select board members, past and present, that have supported this project along the way. Our Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, they've played a vital role recently on some of the things we'll be talking about tonight. Our Finance Committee, who also recently just Tuesday night voted to unanimously support this project, and along with the impacted departments, technology, facilities, veteran services, police, and fire, who all had played a crucial role in the development of this project. And last but not least, all of the abutters that will be impacted by this project. Next slide. So this project will be located at Town Hall Complex. Just an overview of what the existing complex looks like today. The existing fire station will be demolished as part of this project. The existing generator building, which abuts the rear of the fire station, which includes a generator, that standby generator that supplies all the town hall and police, that will remain. We've installed, as kind of phase 1 of this project, we've constructed a brand new communications tower adjacent to the police station. That was necessary. We had to remove the existing tower off the fire station in order for demolition and construction of a new building at the fire station to proceed. And then the existing building itself, is planned to be demolished as part of this project. It's not salvageable. Building was constructed in 1974, and it's been vacant now for just about 4 years since the fire department moved to their new headquarters down on Boston Road. Next slide. So we'll talk a little bit about the timeline. We've actually been working on this project, believe it or not, for close to 7 years. The planning of the project first began in 2015 as we started planning for the new fire station. We also, the Town Building Space Analysis Task Force, discussed what the space needs and analyzed the project requirements for over the next 30 years. That helped contribute to the planning of this project. first funding for the project came in 2017 at annual town meeting when we funded $60,000 to begin the feasibility study and develop the program for this project. And that's when Context was first hired to help us with this project. And the result of their feasibility study recommended a 9,100 square foot, 2-story building that would include primarily a 100-seat meeting room and also office space for technology facilities and veteran services. As a result of that study and the initial cost estimate that was published from that, we then went forward a year later and appropriated another $320,000 to move forward with the design and testing of the site. Next slide. Project continued. We've actually had two more appropriations in 2019. That was and 2020. That was at both special town meetings. That was to appropriate a total of $400,000 to construct a new communications tower at the police station, which I mentioned on the previously. The picture to the right of what that tower looks like. So we've actually had a total of four appropriations to date at town meeting, which have totaled just under $900,000 that's already been committed towards this project. Our design was moving along. Back in 2020, we were planning on going to annual town meeting with the construction funding request. But then, as everybody knows, with the COVID, when the pandemic hit, the project was basically put on hold. We were paused for about a year and a half. We came back in September of just about a year ago now, September 2021. Select Board voted to move forward with the project and proceed along with the design. And at that time, we also, or just recently, I should say, we approved another $92,000 in ARPA funds to be able to then go evaluate the energy efficiency and sustainability options for this project. So moving forward, if this project will be seeking just over $12 million in appropriation at special town meeting. If this project is approved and moves forward, we expect to be out to bid in the summer of 2023 with an estimated construction completion date, an optimistic completion date of December 2024, or possibly early 2025. This project has been discussed at many meetings over the years. We had estimated over 100. I think by the time we get to town meeting, it'll probably be close to 150. And so it's been discussed at many different committees and many different forums over the years. Next slide. So this project really is trying to solve kind of address six key needs in the town, both space needs and department needs. And kind of the marquee of this project is a new large meeting room, community room, and also could serve as a training room. In addition, we'll be looking to provide office space for 4 departments: technology, veteran services, facilities department, and also for 2 newly created positions of our sustainability coordinator and our wellness coordinator. And our plans will show you kind of how that we plan to address all of those space needs. But it's important to note also that for example, the wellness coordinator is currently occupying the downstairs conference room in town hall. So because of there's no real location for that person currently at town hall, that they've had to give up some much needed conference room space just to provide a location for this person to sit. Next slide. So the town hall mirror, the existing meeting room, if you've ever been to a meeting back when we were doing in-person meetings, this is these pictures show what a typical meeting would be like. The existing meeting space can only really hold about 20 people in attendance. And these pictures show pretty much what a typical meeting, particularly a select board meeting is. There's not enough space for people in attendance and for people that are speaking or waiting for other agenda items to come up. And this is a primary space for, for over 80 different departments and committees. It's a primary meeting space for select board, finance, planning board, zoning board, and conscom. So this is one of the key issues we're hoping to address. Next slide. Technology department. If you don't know, the technology department has been located down in the former fire station off of East Prescott Street down in Fort Village. It has many issues. It's a small space. It doesn't meet, for example, accessibility requirements. All the office space is located upstairs. The servers and storage are located downstairs in the garage bays. The servers are in an unsafe area. It's really inadequate space for staff to not only to work, but also to hold meetings and training programs. And these are just a few examples of the conditions that they work in. And they've done a tremendous job over the years making this space work for them, but it's really concerning that our entire technology department has been working in these conditions, and with our critical equipment being in a vulnerable location for a long time. Next slide. Veterans Services located in the Millennium Building. And for the folks that need to meet with the veterans agent, it's one of the challenges for folks to get to that building is the closest parking. If you've ever been to Millennium, you know that you can't park close to the building. And it's, the closest parking space is about 100 yards away from the entrance to the building. And for the people that need to meet with the veterans agent or visit that office, that can be a challenge. A lot of these people have physical challenges or may just have different handicaps, and it's a challenge for them to be able to visit that space, visit that office, and meet with the agent. Next slide. Facilities, fairly new department within town, but they're also located in the Millennium Building. They share their space with the Veterans Service Office. They don't have adequate space for their staff and all of their plan and file storage. So that's another key department here we're hoping to address and get into a better space. Next slide. Okay, lastly, I just will talk a little bit just about the site plan. The building, as I mentioned, will be going in the location of the existing fire station. It's kind of shown highlighted here. The building itself will fit fairly closely within the existing footprint of the fire station. It'll be adjacent to the courtyard. We're hoping to minimize the impact to the courtyard, and also there'll be very minimal impact to the parking lot. As I show here on the left here, the existing complex, the town hall complex, has about 135 spaces. That's throughout the entire complex. About 56 of those are dedicated to the police department, which those will remain. And the remaining of those are, those remaining spaces are used for different town hall functions. As part of this project and part of this study back in 2018, we did do a parking study because of a lot of concerns for whether or not this building would have adequate parking. And the study concluded that there is adequate parking in town center for the events and the meetings that could be held at this building. And so that's a combination. That study looked at a combination of spaces that are available both on the complex itself, on street parking, and also parking across the street at the library. Okay, I'd like to turn it over now to Chris Logan from Context Architecture, and he'll talk a little bit about the plans.
I see. Could you back up one slide? And then I just want to talk about one of the planning exercises we made with this building. So as Tom said, that the building is essentially taking up the footprint of the existing fire station, but what it also is doing is providing a covered walkway from the police station to this building. So you're able to go almost from town hall through the police station lobby, up the covered walkway, around to the entrance of this building without having to deal with the elements, which was part of the initial task, was to try to make some sort of connection between the buildings on the town, on the campus. So this is doing that. The other part of this project is nestled up against the existing generator building. And in doing so, we were able to create a more secure and indoor entrance to the radio room, which services the town communication, public safety communications. So now that room is off of the mechanical room of the 51 Main Street building. So it provides a much safer entrance, as well as a secure entrance for the town radio equipment. Next slide, please. As Tom mentioned, the building is 2 stories. Both floors of the building are occupied by offices, which is a nice feature, meaning that there's activity on both levels at all times during business hours. First floor is on the left-hand side of the page as you're facing it. The front of the building consists of a large 100-person meeting room, but it's a meeting room that can be subdivided into 3 different rooms. We have operable room partitions that acoustically seal off each of the areas of that meeting room. So you can have a left side meeting room, a center meeting room, and a right side meeting room. And we looked at different seating configurations to make sure that that would be efficient and effective for the town. Also on the first floor is a small conference room, which can be used as a breakout room, very similar to what you have on the second floor of Town Hall with the selectmen's room and the small conference room off of that. This is a little larger, so a little more generous space for hosting caucuses or pre-meeting discussions. There's a large lobby that is a walk-through lobby similar to what you have in the police departments. You could enter from both sides of the building, from the parking lot side or the courtyard side, and that lobby will contain a number of display cases for town artifacts or town artwork, or things that are being the town wishes to display, as well as a kitchenette that's behind retracting panels so that you can serve refreshments in the lobby, or it can also serve as a kitchenette for the meeting room or the conference room. On this floor, the office that locates on the first floor is the Veteran Services. That's right off of the courtyard entrance. There's a waiting room, an administrative office in the front, and the Veteran Services Director's office in the back, as well as a very large storage closet for all the equipment and flags and other materials they use for the various events held in the town. The rest of the first floor is essentially service spaces, large multi-user bathroom, 2 large multi-user bathrooms, as well as the elevator machine room and some storage rooms. On the second floor of the building, it's mostly all offices, and it really follows up with the needs of the town. On the front of the building, the largest office is the IT office. That consists of an open office arrangement for the IT staff, as well as a sort of glassed-in, somewhat enclosed director's office. There's a workroom, and there's also a large server room and a packing and receiving room, because many of the products that arrive at this office are shipped there, and they need a place to receive all that equipment and set it up before it can be distributed to where it needs to go. The other larger office on this floor is the facilities. As Tom mentioned, it is temporarily housed in the Millennium Building. So this provides an open office arrangement for the administration, as well as some of the additional staff that's needed to manage all the buildings. It has a large filing area for some of the paper documents that are still being referenced and or will be scanned at some point, and then a director's office. Part of this office has a large sort of area where they can host meetings and review plan documents, something which is really critical for facilities. Also, in the front of the building, we have 2 private offices. One is for the sustainability director, and the other one is for I'm sorry, I can't read it. It's the community services director. These were added to the project late in the game when the town and the select board voted those in as appropriate money to hire those two positions. So it's nice to sort of have a couple other offices that will really complement the community. The rest of the second floor are bathrooms for the offices, single user bathrooms, and a break room, kitchenette, and a workroom, as well as a large room for town storage, which is desperately needed in the town offices. Next slide, please. This is a view looking from the town common towards the town hall complex. You can see it is a two-story building. However, there are some one-story elements that come off of it. Facing Main Street is a portico that has double doors that brings you into a vestibule and right into the large meeting room. Above that is a balustrade similar in nature to what you see on the existing town hall building. The primary entrances, the everyday entrances to this building are on the two sides. That brings you into the center lobby. The exterior of the building is composed of a granite base with a water table, meaning a decorative cap on top of the granite base. The rest of the building is horizontal siding boards with traditional corner trim, rakes, fascia, and soffit trim. This view is from the Memorial Courtyard looking towards the building, but you can also see that covered connection that runs from this building to the police department, a loggia that brings you to the lobby. It also forms actually an entrance to the police department here too, which is lacking in the present courtyard. When you get into the courtyard, you have to look to see where you go to get to the police department. Part of our project scope is some renovations to the courtyard. We're not actually changing any of the memorial aspects of it. That'll remain intact, but we are doing some additional paving that is going to run alongside the new building and connect to the covered walkway to the police department. And we're just zoning off the memorial portion from the walkway portion with some planters. The firefighter memorial will be relocated as part of this project so that it will still be able to be used for town events. Next slide, please. Here's a couple, the next few shots are actually of the main meeting room. And what I want to point out is you can see in the ceiling of the room, there are two sort of darker lines that run from left to right. That's the recessed track that the operable panels run in when you want to subdivide the space into either two spaces or three spaces. As Tom said, this has seating up to 100 people with plenty of room, so you don't feel as though you're crowded. Can handle more people with the standing, if you remove the seats and you want to have standing room only. So there's a number of arrangements of seating or no seating that you can put in here. It has the flexibility to be used as a large training room too, which is desperately needed by the fire department as well as the police department, as it handles more people and also allows you to have a large training area with seating around it. It will be a fully wired facility with all of the AV systems that you need to integrate it into the town hall, as well as any other complex in town that has video connection. And the way we set up is that both sides of the rooms can operate independently or simultaneously. Next slide. This is a view looking towards the portico entry on your right-hand side. Oops, there we go. This view is just looking the other way. This is looking towards the courtyard. You can see on the right-hand side of the page, the sheet, the image, the recess that brings you into the lobby. The larger one brings you into the lobby. The smaller one actually brings you also into the lobby, but also some of the support spaces are off of that. So you have the ability to enter, if the room is broken up into 3 distinct rooms with 3 meetings going on, you're able to enter each of those meetings without having to walk through another space. So the recess on the right brings you into the right-hand space. The center one brings you into the center space. And then there's a door beyond the center one that actually connects to the conference room, but that also serves as an entrance into the far meeting room if you have to divide into 3 spaces. Next slide. And this is just showing it without any furniture, but standing at the lobby entrance looking towards Main Street. And you can see the vestibule beyond the main meeting space. So I think it'd be just a tremendous compliment to the town. It provides, a lot of flexibility for meeting spaces. It also is in character with the other buildings around the town common. And it's, a light-filled space. It has evolved quite a lot since 2017. We've learned a lot about the town needs, and the building has changed with that. And I think most importantly, we'll talk about it in a little bit. This past year, we spent a lot of time looking at sustainability and energy use and energy efficiency, and that's been incorporated into this building as well, including some study that was done before that about security in the building, but not making it a space in which you felt that you were sort of locked into. So I think it's evolved quite well and has adapted to the current and future town needs. Next slide. So some of the systems that we have been looking at over the past year, in the winter of 2021, 2022, we work closely with the Clean Energy Sustainability Committee to actually develop a sort of a criteria for how I would like to incorporate energy conservation and sustainability into the project, and we developed a series of goals. We then engaged 2 consultants to work with us and work with the Clean Energy Sustainability Committee and the Permanent Town Building Committee to further make those goals part of the project's design. So the result of that is now we're looking at a building that is a very healthy building. It has we exceed all the current code and the future stretch energy code requirements. And it meets and exceeds all of the green energy initiatives that we had first set out to accomplish. So there's low VOCs, meaning that the products in the building are not going to off-gas with anything that is harmful to anyone. There's all materials in the building, and this includes exterior materials, will have a high recycled content, which means that there's we're reusing products opposed to manufacturing new products just for the building. We're incorporating daylighting. We're looking at views, and we're also working with a comfort control system, which is tied into the mechanical system and the energy management system. So you're able to really track how the energy is used in the building, and you can begin to see the benefits of incorporating some of the energy conservation measures. All the plumbing fixtures in the facility will be low flow plumbing fixtures, as well as controlled faucets for engaging, turning on the water, turning off the water. The heating system has now been studied closely. We had our engineers do a life cycle cost analysis, which is looking at all the different heating systems and the impact of how those are, how they perform over time, but exactly, and also their energy efficiency presently. And part of that study involved the energy consultants who did an energy model for the different systems that was then incorporated and making a decision as to what system would be best suited for the town and would be the most energy efficient. So we're looking at a high efficiency electric heating cooling system using air source heat pumps. The lighting in the building will be all LED. There will be occupancy sensors so that rooms that are not in use, the lighting will turn off. There'll be daylighting controls, meaning that on a bright day, the level of lighting in the building will be automatically decreased by the sensors. On a cloudy day, the lighting levels will come up so that you don't have a feeling that you're in a darker space because of the great weather outside. And part of this daylighting system will work in conjunction to where the spaces are in relation to the exterior walls. So where you have windows and light is coming in, the fixtures on that side of the space will dim down to take advantage of natural lighting, and the fixtures that are towards the middle of the building will be brighter to maintain a level of brightness that you need. The building is going to be outfitted and we call it PV ready. This is photovoltaic, solar panels. So the building will have conduits that run from the roof down to the mechanical room to allow for future installation of solar panels. And there is a discussion about running conduits out to some of the property around town hall that's part owned by the town to provide a solar field. All of that will help with making bring the building into a net zero or close to net zero performance. Next slide, please.
Chris, before we move on, there's a question actually about this specific
Sure.
topic here from someone. I'll read it. This will be a showcase net zero ready facility. Is there any provision for monitoring energy usage in the public space to demonstrate high efficiency operation as intended?
Sure, there certainly is, and that would be something which would be getting into in more detail in the next phase of the project if it proceeds. We have done this with other projects that have gone for LEED ratings. It's one of the points you get, but for this is sort of a LEED certifiable, meaning that we're meeting all the criteria, but we're not going for the certification. You can install a series of monitors that are tied into your mechanical and electrical systems that actually produce data that on a dashboard, so people can actually see the amount of energy used during different times of the day or during different seasons of the year. So the goals that were really set up for this project was that we're committing to becoming as close to net zero as we can with emissions and sustainability. As I said, part of that would be the next step if the town decides to go with a PV system. We work closely with the Clean Energy Sustainability Committee. It's been I think in the end, when I look back upon it, it was really an instrumental part of the development of this year, with the focus being on making the building as energy efficient and clean and sustainable as possible. The HVAC system, as I said, is designed to provide a healthy indoor air quality. It's a dedicated outdoor air system. So you're bringing in fresh air at all times and preconditioning that before it comes into the space. As I mentioned earlier, we were working closely with a sustainability and an energy consultant, making sure that we were targeting the right things to obtain the goals. The thermal envelope for the building, this is the exterior walls and the roof, exceed all current and pending code requirements. We will have an R25 rating on the walls and an R40 rating on the roof. And that'll create a very tight exterior, which will help keep the building cooler in the summer months and keep the warmth in the winter months, thus reducing your load on your HVAC system. We have an EUI that's approaching 20, is it 25? I'm not sure by the, yeah, approaching 25, which is actually an excellent rating. And for a building like this, it's the perfect type of building to be able to achieve that type of a rating. And the energy used will be offset by renewable energy. It could be produced on site. Part of that would be like a PV system, or it can be purchased as renewable energy. So I'm really happy with where we have come with this building.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris. I don't see any other questions, so why don't I just wrap up our portion of the presentation. This is a summary of the project costs, and as I mentioned before, we're at a total of about just over 12 million, and that's divided up by we have an estimated $9 million in direct construction costs, and those costs have been escalated. We just recently had a cost estimator working with Context that updated the cost estimates based on the new design and current market trends. So we've escalated those costs out to the summer of 2023. So that's when we assume that we're planning on having the project out to bid. And then some of the other costs associated with the building, the demolition of the existing building. There's also hazardous materials that needed to be abated as part of that. Some of the other soft costs, the A&E fees, commissioning and testing. The next item would be for furnishing the building. We also carried an allowance for the technology department to relocate up to this space, and there's so we have some allowances built in for that move. And then we on top of, and again, these cost estimates are we have some built-in allowances and contingencies, and then we've also got an additional 10% project contingency, which we added to the total. So this is how we came up with the total project cost of just over $12 million. Next slide. And we've also done some estimated annual operating costs. This question has come up at a few other meetings. It also came up again at Finance Committee meeting. So just trying to look ahead, when this building is actually completed, and how will this impact the operating budget? So this is kind of a breakdown on the estimated costs. The majority of these costs are obviously for the heating and cooling system. As Chris explained, it's a fully electric system. The entire building is electric. There will be no natural gas associated with this. So those are the costs both for the annual operating and maintenance costs for that, along with some additional costs for light and power and utility costs. And we also factored in a small allowance for annual building maintenance. So we're estimating right now that the annual operating costs would be just under $50,000. Next slide. I believe so. That's the end of our portion of the presentation. Without seeing any questions, I thought I would turn it right over to
there is Tom. There is somebody with their hand up. Oh, in fact, just somebody else has put their hand up. Someone different. Do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, Bob Jeffries. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Bob, you unmute yourself. You should be able to talk.
Yeah, I have a series of questions. One thing, it's a little sad to see that the fire station, which lasted less than, was about 46, 44 years, somewhere in there, which was actually an award-winning building at the time it was built, and one of the earliest examples of postmodern architecture in the US, but it's going to be ripped down, which is really unusual for Westford, in that we still have buildings from the 1600s in use. And I'm wondering, why is that really necessary? I've heard that the building isn't any good, but I'm not convinced of that. The second question is, how many rooms do we have in the town, because it's the way we've always done it traditionally, that seat 100 people? How many rooms do we presently have that we're no longer willing to schedule, apparently, because we need this 100-seat facility? And how many meetings of 100 do we actually have that the selectmen need this space? I don't see the demonstrated need for this size? Because I think originally this building also had a 5,000 square foot or somewhere near there version, and now we're going for the max. So that's another question. And what is the life expectancy of this building? Is it a 25-year building? Is it a 50-year building? A lot of these systems are lucky to go 25 years. So I'm just wondering, what's the replacement reserve for this building that we're going to need to put in order to make sure that we don't end up with another fire station that didn't make it to 50 years?
Okay. Let's see, maybe we could take that in reverse order, Chris. I'll try to remember all these questions, but maybe the last one, or I guess regarding the life expectancy of the building.
Sure. So what I can say is when the life cycle cost analysis was done, it was done in a projected 30-year period. And that would include some maintenance costs for the system. That doesn't mean that in 30 years, the building is going to start to fall apart or not function as efficiently as it is now, but there will be some replacement costs like there is with any building. The key to the life of a building is how well it is maintained, not only the building itself, but the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems within the building. So meeting the regular maintenance program,
your warranty by the manufacturer,
meeting the regular maintenance schedule outlined by the manufacturer, and doing the necessary inspection of those systems, as well as maintaining the exterior, will prolong the life of the building well beyond 30 years. It's unusual that a building of this type and construction would not be around for many decades.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And then I guess the first question regarding why can't we salvage why couldn't we salvage the fire station, the existing structure? I guess in a nutshell, I'll try to address that, but the building itself, when we looked at trying to retrofit and bring that building up to current codes and to try to meet the needs for what we were planning for, compared to what the building was originally constructed for, we felt was going to be well beyond probably what the cost was going to be to try to salvage and retrofit it. It's a completely different type of building than what we're building here. The building, has significant amount of code issues that would have to be addressed. Namely, for example, there's no elevator, there's no fire, there's no sprinkler system. There's a significant amount of upgrades that would be required to try to salvage that building and meet the requirements of this project. And then lastly, I guess the question was how many different spaces we have in town that can seat 100. I guess the answer to that would be all of the schools that have the auditoriums. So high school and the two middle schools, I believe could support 100. Have had space for 100 meeting rooms for 100 people. As far as the documented need for how many of these types of meetings require 100 people. I mean, obviously, as not every single meeting that's going to be in here will have a need for 100, for 100 to be able to accommodate 100 people. But as far as the documented need, I suppose I would probably have to turn that over to see if the town manager's office or some of the selectmen that might be in attendance could possibly answer, better answer that question. Chris, there's also another question for Paul Morse. Are there any other government mass save or national grid incentives available to offset the project costs?
We have been, I can't speak specifically to that in the respect that we haven't actually had a meeting with the utility companies to begin that process, but now is the perfect time to do that. And we have, that's one of the tasks of our sustainability consultant, is to help guide us through that process.
Okay. And then Heather Fitzpatrick has a question. When the Cameron was being retrofitted for new electric HVAC equipment, we were told that electric wasn't ideal under 10 degrees and thus both systems would be used there. I'm wondering why that's the case there and not here. Well, I think the answer to that is because that already has existing gas-fired mechanical systems in there that was going to be used to supplement under those certain winter conditions. Chris, maybe you could answer just regarding the systems that we're going to be installing in this building and its efficiency at colder temperatures.
Yeah. So the system we're looking at is a VRF system, and there'll be a large unit, a small unit, and some air-cooled VRF condensing plant. We did look part of the energy analysis done by our consultant and reviewed and incorporated by GDD when they're putting together the study of different systems to be used. I did look at the ability of this VRF system to heat the buildings efficiently on cold temperature days based upon temperatures in Westford, and to cool the building sufficiently on warmer days. A factor of this is also the tight thermal envelope. That certainly is a major factor in taking the load off of this HVAC system to heat and cool. And the combination of those two through the energy model indicated that this system would satisfy the heating and the cooling requirements on the hot periods as well as the cold periods. So we don't need to have a supplemental heating system for those times, or cooling system.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I think we've all
Got a
the.
couple, still a couple of people with hands up.
Oh, I don't see those.
Okay, let me go ahead and start. Emily Teller,
Oh,
you want to unmute yourself, Emily?
Thank you very much. I don't know how many people are on this Zoom, and I have probably 15 questions and comments, so I'm happy to go at the end.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Why don't we do that?
And then
Who else?
Leslie Thomas.
Okay. Hi, Leslie.
I have two questions, Tom. What is the life expectancy on the roof shingles? And also, what type of siding are you using? Are you using something like cement board that's supposed to have 40 years, or what is the siding going to be?
Chris, want to answer that?
Let me answer that, Tom.
Sure.
The shingle right now at this stage is a 30-year shingle. We have not specified the exact shingle in manufacturer yet, because it will be a public bid process, so we will be putting together a spec that allows for 3 different competitive bids, but 30-year minimum would be the shingle. The exterior of the building, the horizontal siding, is a fiber cement siding, and the direction would be, the recommendation from our office would be to use a factory color. For those who are familiar with fiber cement board, there is a stock color selection that you can get anyone can get, but some of the manufacturers make a lot more than that, and our office generally goes to the larger list of colors to be able to pick colors that are more conducive to the context in which it's being built. So it would go to that color range.
Could I
Yeah.
suggest that you look at 50-year shingles versus 30? As Tom might know, when we did the water department, there wasn't that much difference in price, but certainly a difference in the lifetime.
Sure, certainly we can do that.
Okay, then Bob Jeffries has his band back up again.
Yeah, this is a question for Dan. Given the amount of available open office space all along 110, what would it cost to lease 9,500 square feet for the next 30 years? As compared to the $12 million price to build this building, plus interest on it?
I don't have those figures on the lease rates on 110. I can't answer that. Sorry, Bob.
Have we looked at it?
We have not looked at it.
Yeah, okay.
Why not?
Okay. Is Mike, is there any, I don't see anybody else, do you?
Nope. No other
Okay.
hands, no questions.
Okay, Dan and Christine, do you want to go into your presentation?
Sure. So share my screen here. Okay, so Christine and I have a presentation here to share with you that will explain about the pending town projects, how we are considering funding them, and the financial impact of those projects. So we have prepared an analysis of our projected debt service costs, including the 51 Main Street building and the J.B. Fletcher library expansion coming to the October special town meeting, and the Blanchard Roof MSBA project coming to the March annual town meeting. We also have a placeholder of $5 million for the school administration offices, which is just a placeholder at this point. The feasibility study is still underway for that. And then we have a $1 million contingency built in as well, sort of as a measurement tool, so we can see the impact of that $1 million on the overall debt and individual households. So the town does have debt service goals. As a community, we want to see 7 to 10% of our operating budget allocated towards debt service, according to our select board budget policy and as recommended by Standard & Poor's. It shows we're investing in our community and that we're actively managing our capital, and it's also considered a sound business practice. So quickly, we're going to talk about the two types of debt. Excluded debt is typically used for larger projects and excluded from the restrictions of Prop 2.5, meaning the amounts of the annual debt payments are added onto the tax base. This type of debt is usually used for larger projects, such as the Boston Road fire station, which was built about 4 years ago. Non-excluded debt is typically used for smaller and much more frequent projects. This type of debt is absorbed within the levy limit and competes with other operational needs. So we have a slide here that shows on the left-hand side all of the current non-excluded debt that has been permanently bonded. On the right-hand side, we have bonds that have been issued but not permanently bonded. So you can see we have 22.5 million active non-excluded debt projects. So just an update, we had originally given this presentation at the August 9th select board meeting, and we also presented this at the strategic planning retreat. Since that time, we've had a couple changes in values, and one of those changes was on the median tax rate. So at the November 15th, 2022 tax classification hearing, we're going to see the median household increase from $551,000 in FY22 to $660,500 in FY23. So overall, the town's assessed value is expected to increase by 12.4%. So we've also updated the presentation to build this new assessed value into the project, and also the new projected estimates for the construction projects. So first out with the new center building, as Tom said before, the project price is going to be $12,010,000 as the estimate. To help offset the cost, we're applying $1 million in free cash against the building. This is similar to what we did with the Fletcher Fire Station. And overall, it's going to save taxpayers the $1 million in debt principal payments plus $420,000 interest payments over that 20-year bond. And we can do this because our free cash is in good shape this year. We got certified at $6.2 million last week, which is great. See here. So the impact on the tax bill for a home assessed at $660,500 will approximately be $81.59 in FY24. And the cost is expected to decline over time as the town's overall assessed value increases. So it'll be spread out over a larger area, larger values. So next up, we have the JV Fletcher Library expansion, which is also coming to the town meeting. The total cost estimate is $32,546,000. That's to be funded through using bonds of $23.375 million, $7,851,000 from the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners state grant, $1.3 million from fundraising, another $18,000 is going to be requested from CPA. Again, the annual debt payment is going to be $1.66 million for this project. So again, on the median home, that's going to be $158.61 in FY27. We're not expecting the project to be completed until then. But same as with 51 Main, we're going to see that amount on the median assessed household decrease over time as it's spread over a larger base. And an important note, the library and the select board are seeking ARPA funds from the state to help offset the increased cost of the library. So we'll keep you informed of any information we hear on that. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Christine.
Okay, so the first thing I would like to do is look backwards at our history for our debt service. This slide is showing FY12 through FY21, and you can see that the excluded debt in FY12 was 6.589. It declined steadily for a period of years, and in FY19 we were able to bring in the library. The fire station. So you see that it kind of leveled off again in FY19. The non-excluded debt in the same time frame, the next line down, you can see how that has been steadily increasing as we've been doing more projects under the levy, in competition with other operating costs. The bottom line here is showing the percent of debt on the of our total budget. So in FY12, it was 9.77, and it's been going down and to 6.64 in FY21. Next slide, please. And we left FY12 on this slide just for reference, but if you look now at FY22, on the bottom line, again, the percent of budget, you can see that it's going down. So in FY23, the 3 of the schools and the highway garage are all going to be paid off, and they were all excluded projects. So you see the excluded debt total going from $4.3 million down to about $1.5 million. So if we were to do no new projects, our debt as a percent of budget would fall to about 4.75%. And, I was talking to Dan about how when I was a new treasurer, I thought having no debt was the goal. I thought that that would be the way that we would want to go. But what happens is when you push off and defer and neglect your infrastructure, over time, you're creating a monster. And I have been in communities where, they waited a long time, and then the payday came for a bunch of things all at once, which created some pretty substantial budget instability in those communities. So the reason that we say 7 to 10% as a practice, it's a good business practice just to continuously have a plan for investing in your infrastructure and providing for the needs of your community as it's growing. Next slide, please. So this slide is showing the history and forecast with the new proposed projects. On the top line, you're seeing the operating budget, the actuals for the years through FY23 and estimates for years 24 through 29. The next line down is the gross excluded debt, which we were using the gross excluded debt when we talk about the total debt as a percent of budget, because they don't care when the rating agencies look at us, they don't care that state funds offset some of that debt, but we care. So we're going to look down here. If you look down below the heavy line, yes, you'll see net excluded debt, because on the schools, we have been receiving offsets every year. We get a drawdown out of a bucket of money that is helping us pay for the schools from the state. So our excluded debt is going to be going down, and the addition of the 51 Main Street, we're estimating, as Dan said, about $781,710 in debt service cost. And for the library, we're seeing that coming in 2027 at $1,659,679. We have a placeholder in here for planning purposes for the Blanchard School roof at $3.5 million bonded, the school administration buildings at $5 million bonded, which I'll just reiterate, that is a complete unknown at this point. We just have a placeholder for $5 million and a $1 million contingency. Next slide, please. One of the things I did want to point out, when we are forecasting for our debt service, even when there are not exclusions or anything else going on, we typically use a level debt format so that it's easier to sort of see and compare apples to apples. However, when we actually bond the library, we would have an opportunity at that time to structure the debt to pay lower amounts while we are still paying for the fire station and the senior center, and then ramp it up and pay larger amounts in the middle years of that loan. If you look at this beautiful graph that Dan loves and he created, there's, you see how the excluded debt was declining over these years. This is only excluded debt, and you can see how it's declining. And then in 2019, this lighter orange color represents the payments for the fire station debt on an annual basis, and we tried to keep it sort of level. But then when the schools drop off in 2024, you can see that the fire station debt is making up a larger portion of our total debt. And that was because we structured it that way in order to try to help to avoid any dips and spikes in the tax rate. So as you come along and to look at 2027, and you're seeing that, you know, by 2027, the projections that we have, and again, these are projections. We're trying to do a conservative and reasonable job projecting the future here, but they are just projections. This is assuming that 51 Main, the Blanchard roof, the $5 million for the school administration offices, and the library are all on, and they're all on by 2027, which, you know, that might not even happen. You can see that it's sort of a spike here in 2027 and sort of stays up there for 28 and 29. We have already been in conversations with our financial advisor to request that they give us some modeling for structuring this debt so that it would be a little smoother transition when the library comes on in 2027 or perhaps 2028 even. So just so you know, that would not be quite this big of a spike in real time. Okay, the next slide, please. So this slide is showing the impact on a median household of 660. Dan touched on this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. What I would like to focus on is the total line. If you look at fiscal year 12, you see that in fiscal year 12, we were spending about $571.75 on the average household for excluded debt. 2023, it's going down to about $263.05. 2024, even with the town hall coming on, we're showing about 233.78. If we hop over to fiscal year 27, where we're showing everything has come on by then that we have been talking about tonight, the impact on the tax bill would be about $401 on a $660,000 home. And again, because we have the ability to structure the debt, this is the worst case scenario. We would very likely be able to see it go from 300 to perhaps 325 or 340, something along those lines, rather than a spike of $100 in 1 year. And then you can see that it starts to tail off. Even in level debt, it starts to tail off a little bit because we've built in a total assessed value increase, a modest increase of a little under 3%. Next slide. Okay, so now this is showing our proposed projects and what that would look like for a percent of budget. So in FY 24, you're seeing debt service of almost 2.4 million of excluded debt, and a bottom line of about 7.2 million. Now, when you look at this and you see it go from 6.90% of budget to 5.43% of budget in FY 24, 25, 26, we're not terribly worried about it going lower, because we know that there will be other projects that will come to light that they may not be excluded, but there will be more debt projects that will come to light. And so this line will likely stay closer to 7%, as our goal suggests. Next slide, please. So, we talked about a lot of these things tonight. Our goal is to continue to invest in our town in a methodical manner as the debt is expiring, and you can see that excluded debt is expiring in 2023. This is an optimal time if we're going to consider excluded debt projects. This is an optimal time to consider those. The Select Board, Finance Committee, Capital Planning Committee, and our finance team are going to continue to work collaboratively, as we have been doing, to plan for capital needs. The numbers today provided demonstrate how the proposed debt exclusions will replace our maturing excluded debt. And the new excluded projects in the pipeline will help our town to remain proactive in planning for the needs of our growing community. When we build today and we have to have a building that's going to last for 50 years, we have to think about what the needs 50 years down the line are going to look like. All of these projects will help us to maintain a healthy dedication to debt and to our infrastructure. And we're currently working on a long-term townwide building maintenance plan that will identify the needs for more debt in future years, further in the future than what we are doing right now. So are there any questions?
All right, thank you, Dan and Christine. Why don't we go back to, I don't want to forget about Emily Teller. Mike, so could you bring up the previous presentation? And let me just check here. And while they're doing that, I see one of the questions that's in the chat, Christine or Dan, what is the impact of the increased interest rates? Could one of you address that?
Sure. So we have a placeholder there that shows the cost of $1 million on an average household, and it's $6.75. So as the interest rates are changing, we'll continue to look at that. But as of right now, we're still seeing interest rates under 4% for municipal bonds. So we have it at 4%. And, we'll keep on looking at that, but right now there's really no emergency for us to do that. And it would not make an enormous impact if it went to 4.25. I mean, over the long term, it would. I understand that, but I'm just saying, as the cost on the household, it's not going to change this presentation very much.
Great, thank you. Okay, why don't Emily, if you're still out there, You want to?
I'm totally still out here, and I thank you all for all your work you've done on this. Is this the same presentation that you'll be presenting at special town meeting?
No, this is a much longer version.
Okay. In
The
some ways,
components are the same, but we don't have this kind of time at town meeting.
okay, in some ways, it made sense to me to have Christine and Dan talk about the finances as an overview before the library and the 51 Main Street presentation, because that gives people a context in which to sort of think about this. But anyway, that's just one comment. First of all, I'm sorry. I'm sorry this took so long, and yet it's really good because we have two new positions in town that are now housed in this building. And I think if it hadn't taken so long, that wouldn't happen, and I'm happy about that. Is the new room, the new conference room, the main meeting room, going to be fitted to enable hybrid meetings?
Yeah, yes, I think that question came up the other night too. I think at Finance Committee, but Chris, so I guess maybe you could just address that. 'Cause I think also one of the questions that came up too is as far as what would it be also, be able to have, WestfordCAT televised, hybrid meetings, live, interactive. Maybe Chris, you could just touch upon that briefly.
Sure. The intent would be that all of the rooms, all the meeting rooms in this building would be fully outfitted with an advanced AV system to allow for hybrid as well as inter-building connections in case you have overflow audiences and you want to simulcast something.
That's great, because I think hybrid meetings will be the wave of the future and more people will be able to attend. So I think that's great. Again, part of that, the way that it's seated, could you just go to the meeting room?
Yeah, Mike, could you go to like slide, I think it's gone.
That one. Okay, perfect. I'm wondering if the room can, as a default setup, enable people to walk in the front door and go straight through and not have to walk around, seating and stuff there. I mean, that's down the road. That's not anything to do with the building, but I think that would be important to not have. I just think it's important. It's a welcoming thing that people
Right.
don't have to sort of inconvenience themselves walking around. And the usual setup, to have that presenter table facing the U-shaped table, that's always made me crazy in our current town hall room, because the back of the presenter is to the audience. And I know that they're presenting to the boards, but it seems like it would make so much more sense. And I'm sure there's going to be higher tech here so that the audience will be able to see all the drawings and everything that the presenter is making. But it would make so much more sense to me to have the presenter table be at one end or the other so that all the board members can still see that person, but the backs of the presenters are not to the audience. So that, again, it's nothing to do with the vote at town meeting, but it's just been something that's making me a little crazy. So there are 135 existing parking spaces at town hall, or including the library?
No, that's just on the town hall complex.
Wow, that seems like so much more than I can envision there, but I will totally take your word for that. And let's see, why is there another story with the 3 round windows? That seems like sort of, is there anything up there? Is there system stuff up there, or is it just space that would have to be heated and insulated?
I can answer that. That's the attic space. At this point, it's a cold attic, meaning that it is not heated. The insulation is at the floor of the attic, and that's being reviewed with one of our consultants to determine if that's the most effective way to create the insulated envelope around the building. There will be some mechanical equipment on the back roof of the building, but right now we don't have anything in the attic space.
So could that have been dropped down so that the roof would have been flatter or come over the second floor windows?
Oh, to have a 1.5 story building?
Well, or strictly 2-story rather than that extra space.
Well, the extra space is the roof structure itself. It's a truss system that supports the gable.
Mike, can you advance to the building elevation? There you
Yeah,
go.
there.
Yeah. So that the pediment that you're looking at is essentially a truss system that runs across the building. Then there's a cross pediment at the front of the building. And that's also a truss system.
So those are
So-
structural.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And I'm going down my list here. Oh, what is the outside lighting? I don't see any outside lighting. And as a dark skies person and also thinking about private houses across the street, I would hope that it would be a full shielded cutoff on the building so that there's no bulb or fixtures showing, only the shades. But I don't see any lighting here, so I'm a little concerned about that.
No, we did not model the lighting on these exterior elevations, primarily because they're daytime elevations. The lighting, exterior lighting will be LED lighting. It'll be focused with sharp edges to define where the light is falling in the building. And we will have a photometric plan developed because we'll be presenting that for site plan approval, which will show that there will not be spillage at the property lines.
But will you be able to see the fixtures or will they be full shielded cutoff? So they'll be dark.
Will you see the light emitted from the fixtures or the
Yes.
fixtures?
Yes.
You will see the light at the building. So your walkway needs to be illuminated to get to the building. So
Right,
there
but
will
that could be done with just walkway lights.
right, exactly.
Okay, but on the building, will it be, you won't see the fixtures?
Well, you will see fixtures.
fixtures,
Yeah,
huh.
you will see fixtures on the building. Is your question, will you see light shining out across the site from the building?
No, will you see, would you see the bulb? I mean, you could have lights
The light
there that
source,
shine
the light
down.
source, light source.
Yeah, would you see the light source or would it just shine down while giving lighting around where it is, but you wouldn't see the light bulbs?
You wouldn't see the light bulbs.
Okay,
We're not going to put fixtures on the buildings which have bare light bulbs visible. They'll be within the fixture housing itself.
and the LED lighting that's inside, will that be full daylight spectrum?
It will be a full spectrum LED lighting as well as allowing you to change the coloration.
Okay, and let's see. Oh, can I just mention that in Westford now we say select board. We don't say selectmen. If you could just think about that going forward.
I believe I did.
Okay, wait, let's see, just wait. All right, I think I'm just about done here. Hold on. Oh, the annual operating costs. I wonder if you can compare, if I think that was you, Christine or Dan, if you would compare that to town hall at some point so that we just, I don't know the size of town hall, but going forward, it's just, you know, to explain that might be a good reference for people. And I don't know why there is so much expense for heating and cooling annual maintenance costs. We have heat pumps and mini splits and there's no maintenance really. So I'm surprised that it's 20,000 a year and then 13,000 for maintenance.
Well, that came directly from from
Yes.
our energy our mechanical consultant based on the energy modeling that was done in the building. And I'm sure those are conservative estimates.
It just seems like a lot of money for that. And then Dan, in your presentation, I think you said it was 120 person meeting room and it's 100, I think, unless you're counting the board up in the front or something.
I didn't mention the meeting room, I don't believe.
Okay,
No,
well,
it's only been 100.
okay,
100 people.
somewhere it said 120. And then the free cash, I have a question about that. So $1 million of free cash is going toward this building. why isn't it more? And is there any free cash going toward the library? Or maybe that's impossible with the grant conditions. But I would think maybe we could do 2 million toward this and some toward the library to reduce residents' costs.
So I'll take a stab at that. We were certified at 6.2 million this year. After appropriating $1 million for the 51 main, it brings it down to 5.2 million, which is more in our normal range. Out of that free cash, we do have to pay for our capital expenses for this year, any snow and ice deficit, any perchlorate costs, and any budget supplementals at the annual town meeting. So we don't want to deplete all of our free cash either. $1 million is consistent with what we've done with Boston Road, and any more than that, it's going to start making me nervous.
What about any free cash toward the library? Is that possible? Even if it makes you nervous, because the library obviously is way above. I know we're asking for legislative help with that, but it seems equitable to ask for the free cash for the library too.
I know we didn't consider that.
Okay, I'm just one voter, just throwing it out there. And then I know that you said that the Millennium School is a project that is down the road for 2020, whatever it is, 2025, I think. Are there a lot of other projects that will be coming due? Because Christine, you mentioned stuff with these projects, but I'm just wondering, you're going all the way to 2029. Are there other projects that taxpayers are unaware of at this point that'll be coming on board? Or Tom, maybe you know that.
I mean, all of the large capital projects that are currently in the planning phase have been included in Dan and Christine's model.
Okay.
So, I mean, and we're just, we haven't even started the, the feasibility study for the, for the school admin. And so all they're doing, as part of their model is just using an estimated number. There's been nothing really developed at that point. And, yeah, and I think Christine mentioned also, I mean, there's always going to be more projects that come up. And, but as we sit here today, the major capital projects that we're planning for from a financial standpoint has been included in that model.
Well, there are.
I don't think we're planning another school anytime soon, if that's what you're getting at. But
no, not a school, but I'm thinking about the community building and the pool and all that stuff. There are whispers about that.
Well, that's in the study phase right now, but there is no commitment. There is no commitment on that.
Okay. And my last thing is, can you go to Christine, what you said is Dan's chart that he loves with the excluded debt? Please.
Mike, could you go back to the other presentation?
Sorry, guys. Okay, so the J.B. Fletcher Library amount here is 23,376. It's way more than that now, right? Isn't it like 32 or 36 now?
No, the total if you want to go back to slide, hold on. Go back to slide 8, please.
Yeah, here it is.
This funding sources. So the total project cost for the library is 32.5 million. That's very recent. We got that just
okay.
4 weeks ago.
Okay.
The bond cost is going to be 23. That's all the 23,375. That's what's going to be on the person's, tax bill.
Okay, so that's on that chart.
It is from the grants. 1.3 is supposed to be from fundraising and a very small amount from CPA funds.
Okay, and then hopefully some from the state legislature. Could you go back to Dan's again? Because I just have one last question. Thank you. At the bottom, it says Blanchard Middle School roof, 5 million with 30% reimbursement.
Right.
Do we have any reimbursement from the state for the library?
That's the 7.8 million on the library.
Okay, great. So you might want to say that over there, if you ever show this chart again, that you know, that 7 million, whatever percent that is for reimbursement. So
Well,
that's,
we have a whole slide for that. The Blanchard, we didn't have hardly any information on here. That's why we put that little detail in there, that the cost of the roof is going to be 5 million, but we're only going to be bonding 3.5. The library has an entire slide dedicated to it and a presentation. So we're, you know, that's why we didn't include that.
okay. Thank you very much, all of you, for your patience for my questions.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Okay, we really need to probably wrap this up. I did see that there's another question that Donna had. Is there a plan for the spaces that become vacated, former fire station and Millennium Vet 7 facilities offices?
That's a good.
So I guess, I believe that question probably is what they're asking is there a plan for the Millennium? And when those, you know, when those people move out, I mean, ultimately the plan for Millennium will be, you know, it will be replaced with a permanent structure, you know, for school admin. That building was only temporary when it was purchased, and it was never expected to last as long as it has. So, so I guess the answer to that is there's no plan for anything to move into those spaces right now. Bill Harmon, can I get a copy of these?
Actually,
I'm sorry, Mike?
sorry. Heather has been waiting a long time too. Can I allow her to ask some questions?
All right, let me just answer these two last
Yeah, sure.
questions, and we can go to Heather and then try to wrap it up. Bill Harmon, can I get a copy of these illustrations, diagrams? They are, this whole presentation is available on the town's website. I believe it's under the annual town meeting documents. We also have on display in the library some of these drawings that you saw here tonight, although they're not the most updated ones, but it does show the building elevations, floor plans, and Ellen Rainville was gracious enough to let us display those. So those are on display now. You'll be through town meeting. Another question, in the East Prescott Fire Station. I think the plan for the East Prescott Fire Station, when and if IT vacates it, that would be sold off, similar to what the town did with its sister station in Graniteville a few years ago. Okay, Heather, you had a quick question? Oh, wait a minute, was it in the chat? I think.
No,
was,
Heather, you can talk.
Okay, yeah, no, I did have a question. I was surprised about the 4% interest rate, and then I was curious at the dollars that would generate over the life of the loan. And it looks like Dan has answered that for me. But what, I mean, if it goes up 1/4% or 1/2%, how much extra is that adding to the interest payment over time? And I'm also just kind of curious if municipal bonds aren't being affected by the reserve, like at what point do they get affected? Because I think they're supposed to have another interest rate hike soon.
Well, we have been affected, but the we get these reports when municipal bonds are issued, and when they issue the bonds, they factor in. You've heard us talk about premiums at meetings, which is cash that we get when we issue bonds. So the coupon on the face value of the bond will still sometimes look higher, but because we've received cash premiums, it reduces our overall cost. So they have a factor in order to judge all of the bids that come in, because they don't all bid the same premium amount. They go through a calculation to come up with the true interest cost, and that true interest cost takes into consideration the premiums that we receive. But all of that boils down to a true interest cost, and that's the overall what we would actually have out of pocket for the bonds. So we have not seen it come to 4 yet, even on communities that are at AA, and we're at AAA, so we typically get a little better interest rate. So so far we have been comfortable at 4%. We have been discussing moving it to 4.25.
And just to follow up on an extra 1/4 basis point on that 51 Main Street, it'd be an extra 89,000 in interest over the 20-year period, or about 14,500 per year.
So are you counting the life of the loan when you say that if we kick in $1 million of free cash, we save 420,000? Is that over the full 20 years, assuming that you're paying that $1 million back at the end of the bond? Is that how you get?
Well, we would use that $1 million up front. But I'm sorry, in the chat, I think I typed the 12,010,000. I should have said 11,010,000 because that's what we have in here. I apologize. Yeah, so that interest is on 11,010,000. And
So
the quarter.
Sorry. So the 420 is based on just $1 million over 20 years?
Page
Yep.
7, Dan.
That's correct.
Okay. So just to the comment earlier that said for $12 million, how much can you rent or lease space? It's really more like, 15.6. And I just want to point out one other thing, because I know that I keep hearing that we've invested so much in this building, but that 3.6 in interest that we would pay is over the 3.2 million we were originally told that this building would cost in 2016 or 17 or whatever it was.
I have to take exception to that, Heather. I don't know where you're getting that number. That number was never, that cost. I don't know where that information is coming from, but that was never any cost that was provided by me or our committee. The first cost estimate that was ever published on this project, as I said earlier in the feasibility study, was after the feasibility study, and that estimate was 9 million.
I
don't know where the 3 million is coming from.
I can forward it to you. It matches up with the typical 10% that we would have approved for the design fee. It was from the town retreat meeting, June 16th, and I forget the year, but that's where the 3.2 came from. But I will forward it to you after this meeting, because I've hung on to that. And the only other thing I want to ask is, I kind of made a comment on the meeting room situation, but I'm curious what kind of synergy there would be with the school admin building coming on, because they're going to want a big meeting room as well.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's a completely separate project that hasn't even kicked off yet.
No, I know. I feel like, there's now a meeting room at the library for 130. There's a meeting room here for 100. We have 9 schools with cafeterias and gymnasiums. So I just, would we be adding another meeting room there, or would they, would the committees kind of think, well, wait a minute, we don't need to keep using this? It just goes back to that question that somebody asked earlier about all these meeting rooms.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you all for attending this meeting and taking time out of everybody's busy lives to listen to our presentation. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you all for attending. As we ask for your support of this project. This will be Article 5 at special town meeting, and of course, we'll also be looking for support of the library project too. So thank you all again for your participation tonight, and we really appreciate the feedback that you all provided. Thanks again to all the panelists. Everybody have a great night. Be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank